Hello and welcome everyone to yet another Wyckoff class. This one is also a little bit late because as you might hear, I'm a little bit under the weather. Okay, so here in Brazil, we just had a really cold wave, so a bit of the opposite from the US, and so it kind of affected me. But let's get right into the class, okay? So what we're going to talk about today is phase C and phase D of the Wyckoff theory, okay? So basically what phase C is the most, anticipated event for accumulations and also distributions, which is the test, okay? So the test event was, for example, this event here that we saw back in this accumulation here, or this event here that we saw back in this distribution here. And maybe we can even look at the index chart, and you can see multiple examples that all across Bitcoin's history. Okay, some accumulation tests, some distribution tests, some in slower time frames, some in faster time frames. It happens, everywhere throughout the history of Bitcoin. But we also have to, kind of take into consideration the power of larger time frames. And I've talked about this in the past year, so I'm not just gonna repeat myself a lot. Okay, so basically what the shaking event is made up of is the spring or shakeout and the upthrust after the distribution in the case of a distribution. Okay, and before we start a trend movement, this is not a necessary requisite. Okay, it's not obligatory that we have this kind of shaking event here, but it is very likely that it happens because it serves the purpose of being the test of the last conditions of the market. So if there is more supply downwards, then the price will continue going down, and that's the purpose of this test if people are willing to sell, or if people are willing to buy. Okay, all right. So we see a lot of imbalance in these tests. Okay, these tests, they usually serve the big market participants. They do everything that they can, as I've been going and repeating throughout this whole course. All they do is try to buy for as low as possible and sell for as high as possible. Okay, and so they just throw a little bit of gasoline in the fire just to see if there is anyone else willing to sell to them or anyone else willing to buy from them. All right. So you will see a lot of, people saying, at these moments that Bitcoin is going to go down to the, absolute oblivion. And at these moments, that Bitcoin is going to go up, towards the moon. But as we always have known, these moments are the ones that you should be selling or buying your Bitcoin. Okay, when people are the most bearish and when people are the most bullish are, respectively, when you should be DCAing out of Bitcoin and when you should be DCAing into Bitcoin. All right, this is the main idea. So phase C is quite simple because it's just the spring event and the test event that we talked about earlier. So there's not much to talk about here. Okay. Next, there's the phase D test. So we are trending within the range, and with trending, I mean, establishing an actual trend. Okay. So phase D, for example, would be something like this part here of this accumulation, right? Or maybe even this part here of this distribution. All right. This is what phase D is all about, establishing a trend, a change of character inside that accumulation or distribution, right? It has the breakout and confirmation events. So we see those sign of strength, the jump across the creek, the sign of weakness, last point of support, whatever. As I said in the last class, the main thing that I find so beautiful of Wyckoff theory is that it is very symmetric. Okay, this is Ryan's drawing. So basically, everything that happens on an accumulation happens upside down in a distribution and vice versa. That's because if you really think about it, the sentiments that we have in both accumulations and distributions, the sentiments that the market makers, design these price structures to make us feel something, to feel greed, to feel fear, they are basically mirrors from each other, okay? One is basically a mirror copy of each other. So I think this is really nice. All right. Now, phase D, if we are correct in our analysis, if we really do think it is an accumulation event and people are in fact accumulating, then phase D uh, is really really good because it means that we have a clear trend movement and that we are going to trend towards the other side now. Okay. There are the reaction events and whatnot. We talked about those earlier, but the main thing of the phase D is breaking out, is really changing that character. Okay. As it is for the actual content of this class, I think this is about it. It's a little bit of a shorter class. It's okay. But let's talk a little bit more about accumulations and distributions. Okay. So what I think that it is most important that you take from these Wyckoff classes, and I've said this, many, 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 many times in the past, is that you don't, go read Ruben's book and try to find the exact pattern that he points out here and try to trade the way he tells you to trade. Honestly, if you were to buy this book just for that, I think it is almost worthless. Okay. The most powerful thing about Wyckoff theory, I think, is to be able to identify those accumulation moments and those distribution moments, and then you do your own accumulation and your own distribution. Okay. In my opinion, it is not really smart to be concentrating too much in doing, a trade, something like this. Oh, I'm going to put my stop loss here and my take profit here. Honestly, I think you're better off focusing on when you should be accumulating and when you should be distributing, when you should be buying into crypto, kind of making some reserves for the bull market, and when you should be selling it to get some fiat cash reserves for the bear markets. Okay. Now, I have a personal opinion, and I'm planning to do a video more detailed on this in the future. But I am of the opinion that currently we are seeing a big, big accumulation event. Okay. And I'm going to go into more detail about this in a future video. But basically, what I think is that this range here, it is quite a wide range. Okay. But basically, this range here from, let's say, about 28K all the way down to about maybe 12K, 10K, even here. And it is really a wide range, but this really, really wide range is the best range possible for accumulating your Bitcoin. Okay, this is not investment advice. I'm just a kid, and this is why I'm saying that I'm gonna do a full-fledged, video about this, going on with all the nuance that there is in my analysis for this. But I do think that accumulating here is probably the best spot that you could accumulate Bitcoin if you're interested in that. Okay. And uh, just to show a little bit of my point, my main metric to think that is the age specific realized price. And we have specifically the long term holder realized price, which was the support here, and the short-term holder realized price. So the short-term holder realized price generally is a really, high resistance point. It is currently at 26K, okay? So it has gone down since I made that first post, which I made, let me see, when I made my last post here in the Crypto Garden. Yeah, my last post for my full case was here on July 25th. So just about a month ago. And here I go all in detail of why I think this is a great spot of accumulating Bitcoin. But I do think we have reached a major accumulation spot. Maybe this is not the Wyckoff accumulation structure, maybe we don't see all of those faces and maybe we don't bounce off right off here. In fact, I do think it is unlikely that we bounce off of here and, go to new all-time highs and whatnot, I do think that it is quite likely that we at least revisit these lows here and eventually go even lower to accumulate lower. But I do think there is a great opportunity to be buying in this zone here, because after all, if you buy like at 25K or 15K, the difference is not that big if we go up to say 70K, 80K, 100K. Okay, so this is what I think. You shouldn't be taking it, as financial advice. I'm just a kid, but I do think that we are reaching a point of basically big accumulation for Bitcoin. Okay, and so if you want to accumulate Bitcoin, maybe it is a good time to evaluate why you're not doing it. Okay, so yeah, this was a little bit of a short class. And the next video, we're going to talk about phase E trending out of the range, and we're going to do a little bit of a recap of the whole Wyckoff theory that we have seen so far. So if you want to sign up for exclusive content, get all these posts that I'm doing the month in advance or whatnot, just go to thecryptogarden.io and join us. And yeah, that was it, and goodbye.